Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Shall we begin the session? Today's topic is chapter number 7, that is a product realization. The last class we have studied about the product, we can say sources. Now the product realization, that is next chapter. Okay. So let's start with a summary of the requirements. What are the various requirements that is used for the product realization, or how we are used with the various structured or revised process model, in which the language is one of the misleading concepts, and management responsibility is not a process but a commitment. However, the requirements address aspects such as a policy, objective, and planning for which the purposes will be required. And whatever the resource management, that is a series of the process and the measurement, analysis, and the improvement, that is not a process but a series of the sub processes within every process. And product realization is also a series of processes that have interfaces with the resource management process, and which also measures, yes, there is a measurement, analysis, and the improvement process. So this requirement includes requirement for the purchasing, a process that could fit as comfortably under the resource management, because it is not limited to the acquisition of the component, but it is a process that is used for acquiring all physical resources, including the services, that would comfort but omits the control of the various languages. Now, when we say that we need to communicate with the customers and determine the requirements of the customers, regulators, and the organization that is relative to the product or the services, that should involve more customer satisfaction communication. And once the requirements have been determined, we need to review the requirement that is used for the planned product realization, to identify the process of the product provisions and validate the new processes. And after design validations, we would release product information into the market to attract the customers and undertake the more customer communication. And when the customers inquire about our offerings, we would once more determine the requirements in order to match the customer needs with the product offering and our ability to supply the product. Now faced with the real customer demanding our product, we would review the requirements and confirm we have the capability to supply a product that matches their needs before entering into commitment to the supply. That should use for monitoring and the measurement processes, monitor and measure product at every stage of a process. And there is a corrective action that is used to facilitate the concept, that is used to facilitate the preservation of the product and take care of the customer property. And once you have undertaken all the product verification and the preserves the concepts, product for the delivery, we would ship the product to the customer or complete the service transactions. And to complete the cycle for the customer satisfaction, customer communication, that will be initiated once more to obtain the feedback on our performance on our data. So we have linked together with all the clauses in section number 7 and only used with section number 8 of the standard, because the two cannot be separated. So one is a marketing, then there is a product supply, sales, order contract, there is a product planning or the product concepts, then there is an order for the new designs, product designs that is used with this, then order for the existing product, production, installation, order for the new services, service design, service delivery, specification, service delivery, then the distribution and the customer. So this is the relationship between the processes in the product realization. So there's a marketing, then sales, product planning, product designing, production, installation, service designing, and the service delivery. The next is planning the product realization processes. What are the various product realization processes that is used? This standard requires the organization to plan and develop the processes required for the product realization. That is, what is the product realization, how it is used, and how it is gathered with the product realization. Now, what is the meaning of this planning the product realization process? So this means that we take care of the processes that is needed to identify, create, and supply the product or the service, and would include those needed to identify the product services required by the organization customer, that is the sales process. One is a project contract or the order planning process, that is to plan the provisions of the identified product and the services, design the identified product and the services so as to meet the customer needs and the expectation, that is the design process. Then procure the materials, components, services needed to accomplish the design or generate or deliver the product or the services. That is known as a procurement. Procurement means what are the various material that is required, what are the various components, what are the various services that is required to accomplish the design or generate or deliver the product or the service. The next is generate the product, that is the production process. Then supply the product or the service, distribution or the service delivery processes. Then install the product on the customer satisfaction, customer premises, maintain and support the product in the services, that is the product and the service support process. Then provide the support to the customer, that is the after sales, technical support or the customer support process. And these processes are the product or the services specific and take the input from the marketing process where new products and services have been identified through the chain of the related processes that delivers such products and the services to the customers. And whenever we are using the product designing, that may be in form or that may be form part of the organizational management system under ISO 9001 1994 if all the products are not designed for the specified customers. Now, as a nature of the planning very significantly from organization to organization, the generic term for this type of planning is the product realization planning. So what is the generic term that is used? That is the product realization planning. Therefore, differentiated from the specific planning activities such as the design planning, production planning, installation planning, and so on. And this refers to, or this is therefore an overall planning activities that is needed to meet all the requirements for a project. Whatsoever the requirement that is specified for the project that is used with the designing, that is used with the installation planning. Now, what is the meaning of this, or why this is necessary? Because this leads to the process approach principle. And in designing the management system, the core processes needed to produce the organization of product, services that should be developed so that the planning to meet a specific orders that does not commence with a blank sheet of the paper, but it is used with individually for each product. Hence, there is a need to plan and develop the processes for the product realization. Now, how is this implemented? This is implemented using the planning product realization processes. And there are too many variations in the product realization process to provide much more than the overview that is driven by the two processes. One is the sales process, one is a marketing process. And the sales process promotes the organization existing processes or the product and the services and attract the inquiries, therefore creating a need for an inquiry from the customer inquiry into the orders of the or the contracts. And this may also require a project planning process in order to provide the customer with the various purpose. We can say what is the resource that is available with this. And once the contract or the order has been agreed, a project or order planning process is needed to establish the provision that is needed to meet the contract or the order requirements. This is used to establish the needs, customer satisfaction, or requirements, and the marketing process searches for the new opportunities that will result in the development of the new product and the service. The output will lead to the project planning that supplies the sales process, that supplies the product services to the next well or the next sale. Now, when we say about the product planning, that therefore be driven by the customer specific requirement as well as a requirement that is determined by the organization that will reflect or create the customer needs and the expectations. This planning process therefore also includes the sales process and the project or the product planning process. This may not require the tailoring for the specific inquiries, but with the main project, it is used with the large procurement agencies. And this process often varies depending on the nature and of the product or the project that requires careful planning for the organization to be needed. And whenever we are using the goods or the services that require the customer effects from the challenge, and in the planning product realization, there are multiple factors involved. What are the various factors involved? That is the task, timing, responsibility, resources, constraints, dependencies, and the sequence. And the flowcharts is also used for the process that is developed in establishing the management system for identifying the tasks that requires the throughput, that requires the resources, capacity, and capability that requires any modification to meet the requirements of a particular project, contract, or any order. And these tools that will be used in the product realization planning are the Gantt chart and the PERT chart. Now, what is the full form of PERT chart? That is the project evaluation and the review techniques. And these are the various project or common methods of the planning the project, that is to prepare a project plan and includes the following. What are the various content that is included in the project? One is the project objectives, one is the system requirements, one is the project strategy, critical success factors and the success criteria, project milestones, project timeline, project organization, that is a chart, and the team responsibility. Then work breakdown structure, resource provisions in terms of space, development tools, equipment, supplier control plan, information system that includes the strategy, that includes the tools and their development. So one is the project objectives, system requirements, strategy, factors, milestone, organizations. Now, this is the sales and this is the marketing. Determine the project requirements, review, then requirement adequate. If the requirements are adequate, then goes to the next one. Otherwise, resolve the inadequacy. That means inadequacy means what is the shortfall for the requirement. Then break down work into the packages. Then preview the work package statements. Determine the project timelines. Prepare the project plan. If it is again it is approved, then revise the plan. Sorry, it is not approved, revise the plan, otherwise identify the resources for establishing the project management strategy. Then produce the management strategy or the producer management plan. If it is approved, yeah, it is approved, then goes to the next part, source design, project design. It is not approved, then revise plan. So service design, product design, product acquisition, service delivery, installation and the production. Communication plan, yeah, this is the strategy. Then personal development plan, evaluation plan, project reviews and the contract management. Now there is a note that suggests that the design and the development requirements may be applied to the development of the project realization processes. Now the next is the project or the process development planning. It include the process objective, process specification, that includes the parameter, targets and the success criteria, process development stages, responsibilities for the actions and the decisions in developing the process, then the procedure instructions that is needed to execute the process development task, stages where the verification, the validation is done and product takes place, the acceptance criteria and the methods of the measurement, conditions that have to be satisfied for the process to be deemed operational, that make the decision on one page and on what basis, time scale that is required for each task in each stage. And whatsoever the processes that is referred to are not only the making and the moving process, but the new processes that may be needed for communicating with the overseas customer. Overseas customer means the outsider customer that is available for the communication, then processing the military orders, managing a multinational project, configuration management, managing a centralized procurement program, system design involving the new technology, installing a new IT systems, managing the major subcontractors, and then setting up a remote service. And this must be established to manage the development of any new process. By building a team for the process, you will have to focus on the staff more than the clearly that is loading the more jobs for the individuals if you lack with the resources. Next is the process development that is used to address the activity of the design itself. Only the boundary activities of the input and the output, but in the middle the process has to be designed, and this requires the multiple steps, multiple important steps that involve the process stages, recruitment, methods of performing the task in the process, means of conveying the process or the product and information through the process, the means of sorting or storing the product or the data awaiting the processing, means of disposing the process waste, failure modes, and the eliminating, reducing or controlling the effects. Then at last there is a process development output that includes the deliverables, that includes the flows, procedures, setup, operating instruction forms. The next is creating the consistency in the process planning that will be used with other requirements of the management system. Why this is necessary? Because it leads to the leadership principle. The next is determining the need for the specific process, that is need to establish the processes specific to the product. Now, this will lead to that, this will respond to the process approach principle. And once the technique is good, that is used to identify the new control, that is used to establish a list of the critical items of the areas by analyzing the design. Such items may include the long lead items, risky suppliers, high reliability items, limited the lifetimes. Then determining the need for the documentation, that requires the need to establish the document specific to a product. Determining the need for the resources, that includes whatsoever the product that is specific to the organization. And determining the validation, verification, and the monitoring activity that we have done. And process records, how it is